Hello, friends. My name is Traci Smith, and I am the director of Family Faith Every Day and the host of this conversation, Family Faith Every Day in Conversation. And the purpose of these conversations is just to bring together different experts and authors and friends who are going to talk with us about living faith in everyday life. The purpose of Family Faith Every Day is to help families grow closer to one another and to God through simple faith practices. And so throughout this series, we'll be hearing from different authors, different speakers, different friends that have something to say about this topic. So it is my great joy today to introduce you to Arianne Lehn, who is the author of Ash and Starlight, and she is a good friend of mine. I'm going to let her into the room in just a second, and we will have a chat about faith and family. And I hope that you'll want to stick around to the very end, and I'll come back and give some highlights and announcements at the end. Ariane, welcome. Welcome to my virtual living room. You're in your living
Hello.
room, or you're in your room. I'm in my room. It's so good to have you
Mm,
here. I just introduced you to my audience, and I didn't say much about you except that you're my friend and the author of Ash and Starlight, and that you're here to talk about faith and mothering and all of the things. So,
oh.
why don't you just kick us off? Tell us a little bit about your life and your world right now.
Well, hello, friends, and thank you, Tracy. You're one of my favorite people to be with, so I'm so grateful to be here today. And let's see, the landscape of life right now. I have three children. I have a fifth grader and a third grader and a kindergartner. So my life right now is involves a lot of caregiving, both for my kids, but also for my mom who developed early onset Alzheimer's and is a number of states away. And so I'm in a time now where I just moved her into a different place across states last month, and all of my kids have been getting over sicknesses, and now everybody's back to school. And so I'm just kind of taking a breath and exhaling and finding some grounding for myself. I would say my daily life is kind of a mix, like I said, of caregiving and of creative work, which I feel so grateful to have the opportunity to do. I write, I do a Monday Manna, it's called Substack. I paint, and I do some other freelance work for ministry organizations. And I just think this is going to be a great conversation about
Just
the
a few
way
things
that
that you do.
spiritual life is messy.
I was like, how's your world, Ariane? Well, the
Yes.
thing that stuck out to me a little bit as you were talking, I mean, I was thinking, first of all, I don't know if we've ever lined up all of our kids and ages, but it's like there's like a little bit of an
Mm,
overlap, like six
yes.
between us, like from
Yep.
high school all the way down to kindergarten. And you have a lot of things that you do in the world, and you're caring
Hmm.
for a lot of people. And one of the conversations that you and I had a while ago, we were talking about all of this. And I think I was maybe mentioning that somebody once said to me, like, that I had a lot of plates spinning in the air or something.
Mm.
And they meant it as a compliment. I did not take it as a compliment. But we started down this road of conversation about the difference between life being busy versus it being full. And you kind of helped me reframe that. I don't know if you remember that conversation or if
Mm.
you can speak to all the people about how you view that, because it was really helpful to me.
Oh, well, I'm trying to remember what my own words of supposed wisdom were to you with that. But I think the distinction in my own mind is between busy and full is there a current of intentionality towards
Mhm.
all of these things that I'm doing and giving my energy towards, or do which to me feels full, like it has meaning, it has intention, it has purpose. I feel like I am choosing these things,
Mhm.
as compared to busy, which feels frantic and feels
Mhm.
kind of reactive. Like that feels like the plate spinning in the air of just that there's not a lot of thought or sense of grounding and control in it. It's just trying to anxiously keep up with all of these demands or responsibilities or activities that I feel I have to do. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe there's sometimes there's they can seem like the busy full thing. I sometimes wonder, is there that much of a distinction? But I think it comes down to kind of your awareness and your grounding, and if you feel like you are choosing to do these things, like you yourself versus
Mhm.
um trying to acquiesce or please demands that you think are being placed on you.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know why, but it just really hit home to think about it that way, to think about a full life versus busy. And I think some of it is that busy is such an empty
Mm.
descriptor sometimes. And people sometimes use it as like when you ask them how they are, they'll say busy. But that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't tell me much about your life or what does it mean, right? And I
Right.
think that there are times I think one of the reasons I resist the spinning plates analogy is that when you see that, the person's trying to do it all at the same time.
Yes.
And I think that's not the way.
Right.
Like if
Yeah.
you're painting, right? And ideally,
Right.
maybe you're painting in the confetti time or the margins, or maybe it's just a few minutes. But if you're spinning plates and like really busy, you're not present anywhere, right? And I
Right.
think that that's part of what you and I both talk about a lot is how can we be how can we be present where we are, even if it's for
Right.
just a snapshot or a little like snippet? And that's something that you and I both talk about and write about, and ideally try to live out in our homes. So I'm curious, is there any practice that in your home you find meaningful in the midst of all of this? I always like to say hustle and bustle of daily life.
Right. Right. Well, we've talked a lot about how you and I are both lovers of ritual and how those practices, while in some respects, they on certain days they might feel kind of forced, or
Mhm.
um, that those really can be anchoring moments that do bring a sense of grounding. I really view any kind of spiritual practice or ritual for me is just about um, looking for or remembering that God is here, um, and that and that it's about this moment. And so, I mean, I think about, mornings in our house are bananas. And it's not because kids are waking up late. Like, as you know, Tracy, I mean, my kids are getting up at like 5 or 5:30. They've just always been early risers. And so we have this long stretch of time before they have to be to school. And it's often filled with a lot of noise, a lot of chaos and mess and playing, and yet right when it's time to go to school, it's a scramble because somehow the backpacks aren't ready to go and the shoes are not to be found and lunches still need to be made. And yet one of the things that we try to do, even if it's, right as we're going out the door, is my husband and I, whoever is going to be seeing the kids off, we say this same little blessing to our kids every morning. And it's remember, you are, oh my gosh, here I go. Now I can't remember it because I am saying it on the spot. God loves you. God made you. God is always with you. Jesus is your friend. And we
Mm.
just say those four things. And to me, I don't know how much my kids are taking in of it every morning, but for me, it's just
Mhm.
this little pause of remember who you are and remember that you're loved and remember that God is going with you through this
Mm.
day. And so that's just one little point of presence and attention that just we pause to do as much as we can.
I love that. And part of what I want these conversations to be is to really help people kind of get into it. So forgive me for being like really inspecting that practice, but I have
No,
some
it's always
follow-up
what I want to
questions.
know is, okay, but what does this actually look like
Yeah,
on the
so like
ground?
who
Yeah.
does it? Is it at the threshold? Is it change day to day? Like if it's a really busy day, are you just like, remember God loves you, okay, bye. Like
I mean,
how
I have shouted it from the bathroom window upstairs while my husband is walking the kids to school. Or sometimes we'll say it to them as we're like, partying with them at the corner and they're walking to their door. But
Nice.
there have been mornings where we haven't said it, and then the kids say, "You have to say the blessing."
Mm,
So the kids will remember too.
I've heard that
And I
over.
and I have to say too, I got this too, the gist of it from another friend who the story was she went to the hospital to see this family who had just had a baby, and um she was pretty new in her pastorate, and the family like asked, "Oh, well, we want you to say a blessing over our child." And she thought, oh, she hadn't necessarily prepared anything that she was specifically going to say, and those were the things that came out was God made you, God loves you, God is
Mm,
always with you, and Jesus is your friend. And we were talking about that. I just thought that is the heart of it.
yeah.
That's feels like the most important thing we could say to our kids.
Oh, I love it. And, part of what we're doing with Family Faith every day is interviewing parents about their faith practices. And in the few interviews that I have done or heard about so far, that blessing piece about if you forget to do it, that the kids call you back to it is something that I've heard more than
Um,
once.
right.
Um, And I love the idea of doing a blessing when you're headed out the door for school. I think that is a
Mhm.
really great time to do it. And you were talking about like not knowing if it's like getting in there. And I wanted to share with you. I don't think you and I have ever talked about what I was doing for a while. And this kind of speaks, I think, to the fact that like practices sometimes we drop them and then they come back. Like our rhythms
Mhm.
change.
Mhm.
Recently, I changed Elias and I, my husband and Elias, in case people don't know who that is, changed our who's taking the kids to school because I had a
Mm.
writing group that I wanted to get to. So now Elias does it. So, but for a while, there was a period of time when I was doing the drop off, and as the kids were going, I don't know where it started, but when they would hop out of the car, I would say, be brave, be kind, be you. And it was like, I saw it, I don't know,
Mm.
on a sticker or a poster or something. And I said it one time, and my youngest kind of like repeated it. And then it just became a thing. And I would say it even to the older boys. My son Clayton's a freshman, and we take his friend to band. And so they would hop out. And it just felt like something you could say to high school boys too. And so I started saying it. And then I noticed at parent like spring curriculum night the other night, there was like this little thing where my daughter was describing herself and she said, I'm brave, I'm kind. She had like a few descriptors and two of
Wow.
them were from that
From the
blessing.
blessing. I love that.
And I don't know
Wow.
if there's a connection there or not, but I also think it might not hurt, right? Somebody
Right.
tells you tells you this every day, then it
That's
becomes
right.
like in your heart of like who you are.
That's
So
right.
I don't know. I think that one of the things that happens with faith practice is sometimes people have a really big idea of what it's supposed to be.
Hmm.
But really, what we're talking about sometimes are these smaller things. Um,
Right.
and I wrote down, you said kind of earlier, you said sometimes it feels forced, or maybe it can feel forced. Like, can you talk about that a little bit? What do you mean?
Oh, I mean, there are so many times where, I know what I just don't feel like doing the thing,
Yeah.
and it just um or I think about just other moments of parenting, or being with your children when you know what the kind or the gentle thing to do is, and you just like, at least for me, I just don't do it. And
Hmm.
so even though forced sounds kind of has a negative connotation to it,
Hmm.
but I think maybe a better word is just compelled, that we something deep within us like drives us forward to still do this life-giving thing,
Hmm.
um to believe that it is life-giving even when you don't feel like doing it in the moment, because I
Yeah.
just think too with words, I mean, you and I obviously are both big lovers of words and believers in words power, and I just think about Abraham Joshua Heschel, saying words create worlds.
Hmm.
And so I do believe in the power of, regardless of how you feel when you are saying the words, that there is power to the words that you
Yeah.
put out there, and um, especially when they're words of life and words of blessing and remembrance. That's creating something. When we think about God created the world by with a word, God spoke. And just so
Mhm.
to view that, I don't know, that doesn't really answer the question of
No,
force,
it,
but
it
just to speak to, yeah, I mean, there are plenty of times where we don't feel like doing the thing, or we choose the other thing, we don't do it. I mean, there are
hmm.
plenty of mornings where I'm really angry at one of my kids, and maybe I don't say the words, that happens too, where we,
Yeah.
we leave where the child's in a huff and I am too. And
Hmm.
but do we return to it? I
Yeah.
mean, that's part of ritual, is it's not a perfection streak. It's about going back. And we've talked, I know you and I have talked about beginning again, again, and you just keep
Hmm.
you keep returning to the thing.
Yes, I think that is the key, right? That's
Yeah,
the secret sauce to making a faith practice, a faith habit is returning to it and
right.
returning to it again and again. And I think that it is really important to call out or to name that it's can be hard and
Yes.
and sort of a slog sometimes.
Yes.
Something like a daily blessing might seem like, well, how hard is it? Well, when you're raising kids, like it can be
That's right.
hard. A
Right.
lot of times, with a lot of people do bedtime blessings, and
Mm-hmm.
like the amount of sweat that it takes to put a young child to bed sometimes. Like you're like chasing them around
Yes.
the house, wrestling them into the thing. And then like I
Yes.
I just remember this feeling when my kids were really small. It's like once you get them in the bed, like yes, I would give a hug and a kiss, but I'm like, I'm so ready to get out of there. Like
Yeah.
it's just like
Yes.
so tiring, right?
Right.
But to say like,
Right.
okay, we're gonna take one more beat, or we're gonna do this
Yep.
story or this connection, even when like it doesn't necessarily feel like it. And then to know that like some of the stories that you hear or some of the stories that we tell are the really magical, sparkly ones. Like, oh, this
Mm-hmm.
great moment of connection with my
Right.
child and my parents, and, you know, and like that's great. And we love those. But then there are also these moments where the faith practices go totally sideways, or
Yes.
somebody told me that their child was really resisting blessings because they knew that it meant bedtime. So the kid was literally like, no blessing, no blessing. Right. And then it's just like,
Smart
I'm trying to
kid.
bless
Yeah.
you. Uh,
Yes.
so like, I think it speaks to
Mm.
a topic that you and I have talked about a bit, which is like being being perfect, like being that
Mm.
perfect mother. Like where does that come from, first of all? And what do we do? What can we do about it?
Oh, yes. It's such an, well, A, it's such an illusion, and I think it's just such a pressure cooker too. And it's something that I've really struggled with in the past, and I think I'm growing in freedom from. But this idea that there is a best way or a perfect way to do things, that's kind of the first piece. And then, at least for me, this the what makes it even tougher is this belief that other people are achieving this and I'm not. So
Yeah.
it's like it's like kind of a double-edged thing of I'm failing and there has to be something wrong with me because it seems like other people are
Hmm.
doing this or have this figured out and I don't, or I can't.
Hmm.
And I think like slowly over time, one thing I've realized is that, well, we know this to be true. Things are not what they seem, first of all, and we know we don't want to live in a comparison place anyway. But the second piece is that no matter what others are choosing to do or what their standards are or what their priorities and values are, that's not necessarily going to be a good fit for you and for your family. And so I've come to recognize that, like, rather than asking, you know, along the perfection stream, like what's the best way
Hmm.
to help my kids with this, or what would be the best parenting approach to this, is to ask what's fitting. So,
Hmm.
it just leaves a lot more room and kind of brings us back to the present moment that we were talking about earlier too, because like what's fitting in this time and place is going to be different, even if it's with the same child, then it
Yes.
will be on a different day. And
Mhm.
so I think it's just, I don't know, we see this modeled so well in Jesus of just how he was so nimble and just like responding
Mhm.
to what the need was at the time, and um not thinking of what, the Pharisees were the ones who were trying to be perfect. We don't want to
Yes.
be them. So
Yes.
um but I just, yeah, as it's a crushing weight, this
Hmm.
this fear of not being perfect, fear of not being good. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, how many people listening here are familiar with the Enneagram, but I am a hardcore one on the Enneagram, which
Hmm.
is, it's been named the perfectionist or the reformer,
Mm.
both of those titles. And it is just really this drive of feeling like there's continually something to fix or improve, or this striving to be better, to be good, to be perfect. And um it's not a good way to live. It's
No.
just um and so I think we come back to what feels fitting and what feels loving. Maybe
Mm.
that's like a second piece to that, or maybe it should be the first piece.
So
Yeah.
good. So, so good. And I think too, like there's a piece about expectation that can
Yes.
fit into all of this. And like I
Hmm.
also want to say, like when you said that there's always somebody that it looks like they're doing it better or they're doing it all. Like, I feel that too, even as a lot of people will come up to me and use me as
Mm,
that example and say, like, well, you wrote the book on this, so like you must be doing it all.
right.
And then I think, but like, well, who do you think was watching my kids when I was writing the books? Like, not me. Like,
Right.
so it's like
Right.
there's stuff going on underneath everybody's life. Like you just it's comparison is such a hard, it's such a thief. right?
Right.
Because there are struggles there that you don't see, and there's always
Yes.
somebody where it looks like they're doing it better. And I think you and I are just here to say that that's every family is imperfect and
That's
has
right.
struggles, and anyone that works with families knows that that's true, you know,
Yes.
but it's
Yeah.
hard to like kind of internalize. And I think that
Right.
expectation is a huge thing. A mutual friend of ours and I talk about this a lot about how when, we love magic, you and I love like magic things, and we have other friends, like we love sparkle and energy and magic. But then if you are like, okay, this is going to be sparkly and magic, um,
Mm.
then if it's like just good, then it's like, oh well, that didn't live up to what it was supposed to be. And so in a weird way, when we can say like, okay, my expectation for what this is going to be is like, you know, it'll be a fine. It'll be a thing. It'll be a birthday party. It'll be a day. And we'll all get
Right.
together and we'll just have to see. Because
Right.
sometimes, I mean, I've had so many times where you're like, oh, I think this is going to be amazing. And then the kids are like, that's fine. And then there are other times
Mm.
when you're like, just not expecting it. I remember this time when I was in a real overloaded stage of life, and it took my then little kids to the mall, and there was like this little slide, and my son just went up and down the slide for like an hour or more, just repeating.
Wow.
It was like pure joy. And I was just sitting there and I was like, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't
Mm.
plan on this. Literally, we're just in this place so I can sit down and take a breath. And I
Wow.
found this like 45 minutes of magic and peace. So it's like,
Mm.
that was magical precisely because it wasn't planned or done by anybody. It was just
Right.
how it worked, right? So,
Right.
like with our faith practices, I think if we can sort of say, you know, the power in them is in the time. Like I think about, if you put a couple of pennies into a bank every day, it's not going to
Right.
be much. But then you look at it over a lifetime and you're like, wow, we built up this treasure. And I
Right.
think that that's, I don't know, at least that's kind of a way
Yes.
that I think about it.
I
Um,
love that.
you talked a little bit about like your poetry, your writing, your painting. Like, tell us when and how you have time to do that.
Oh, it's been different in every season. I mean, now I have three children who are in school. And so there supposedly there's the most time to do it than ever, but doesn't always feel that way. But I think I mean writing especially has been such a companion in helping me make sense of my life and find God in my life. And I just, even when kids were really small, I found I needed to have a journal, sometimes just in the kitchen, so that I could grab it to write down two sentences or something during the
Mhm.
day in between things. Um, I mean, now that I do have the space for it, I often do um I have like a writing gratitude practice that I like to do in the morning, which that's not long. It's writing down at least three things that I'm grateful for. And then I just try and do a page of some free writing. And
Mm,
some days that's the only writing I do.
mm,
But I love that. And then I don't really have uh, a pattern or a ritual right now around my artwork. And when I create, I did an art show the end of last summer. And when I was preparing for that, I had my days that were painting days.
mm,
But now it feels a lot more fluid, and I'm trying to be okay with that as someone who who wants to be have things very, very structured and planned. I'm learning that having a little bit of breathing room and flexibility is okay. So yeah, but I mean I wrote my book, Ash and Starlight, my book of prayers was written when it was actually a pretty insane time of life for me
Mm,
when I had let's see, my daughter was 4 and my son was like a baby, he was 1
mm,
and I spent a lot of his first year of life actually in a boot because I broke my foot and I broke my ankle and I ended up sitting in a recliner because I really couldn't move and wrote a lot of the prayers in that book
mm.
from that recliner. So again, like we just find the words will find a way to come
Yeah.
when you just have a page open.
I love that. Did you write in like your handwriting or did you type it or how did
It
you?
was some of each.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I often like to start with ideas on a page using my hand, moving across a page, jotting down ideas. But then when I was forming the prayers, then I would work on my computer to kind of pull the things that I'd already
Mm,
scrawled down.
no, I love
Yeah.
that. I think it's sort of like a metaphor for faith practice in a way. Like the practice
Mm,
of writing is a practice like anything else. And I think
yeah.
there's so many myths about it and how that also happens. Like when you said the blank page that the words will come, I will push back on that a little bit and say sometimes they don't.
That's
Right?
true. That's true.
Sometimes they don't. But what happens there is that you have to keep coming back, or
Right.
maybe the words that come are not what the future words are going to be, or maybe it is a slog, or maybe it's not
Yes.
inspired. But I also think
Right.
it's a myth to think that all writers are people that, lock themselves up in a cabin and spend, 8 hours of writing. Like you and I would
Right.
never have gotten any books published that way if that was
Right.
how
Right.
it had to be, and I think I've talked about this before in other interviews or places, but my prayer book was written, a lot of them in the waiting room for my children who have lots of physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech
Mm,
therapy. And so they would be like on little scraps of paper. And then probably like the most devastating part of that is sometimes I'd like could track them down, like they'd end up in the bottom of the purse or whatever. But
right.
I think that image of collecting things
Yes.
is a really great one, right? Do you have
Yeah. Yes.
um do you have any favorite prayers from Ash and Starlight? People probably ask you that all the time.
Oh, it's like picking a favorite
I
child.
know, I
No.
know.
I mean, honestly, one of my favorite prayers is it's the very last one in the book, but this gets us back to the theme of blessing that we talked about earlier. But
Mm,
it's a prayer for blessing someone you love or blessing yourself, and it's based
mm,
on the fruit of the spirit. So it's may Traci have love in her life. May Traci
mm,
have joy in her heart. And
mm,
I go through the fruit of the spirit, um, which that's something that we love in our family. It's kind of been a practice. Another one of our practices with our kids too is praying the fruit of the spirit.
mm,
Um, there's another one of my favorites in there though is so most of pretty much all of the prayers in the book are titled when something. They're meant
yeah.
to meet us in these different moments. And so there's a prayer for when I need to believe this thing can live again.
Mm,
And it was a prayer inspired by the story of Ezekiel looking over that valley of dry bones. And
mm,
I just think about experiences in life where we just feel whether it's, circumstances or a relationship or some piece of ourselves where we just feel like this is completely dead. Um and yet there's this wondering of could there be life, that because we believe in
Mm,
a God of resurrection, and
mhm,
um and some things, I do believe that, whatever dies, like there is going to be new life somehow. It's not necessarily going to take the form that we want it to take or think it could take, but that's the promise that God gives us. And so that prayer met me in a lot of different
mm,
hard circumstances at the time, but just this idea that we have a God who um, through breath and promise brings new life
yeah.
to what feels dry and dead.
Mm. Oh, I love that so much. I don't know. I may have told you one time about a dream I had once about a bird in a box, but like I'll tell you again. I'm
Okay, it's
not going to put
sounding
you on
vaguely
this. I'm
familiar,
not
but
going to put you
yeah,
on the spot to be
remind
like,
me.
do you remember my dreams? But like there was this, I had this dream a few years ago and I was going through a lot of stuff and it was a bird and like it was sounds like really morbid, but it was like a dead bird. And so I put it in the box in the dream and I put the
Mm.
box in the corner. And then in the dream, I was asking everybody like, is it dead? Is it dead? And lots of people were like, yep, it's dead. But then in my dream, one of my children like went over and put their ear on the box and then said, I hear the wings fluttering.
Oh,
And like
that is tremendous.
and it was like, I
Wow.
think of that image all the time. Like it's like a
Wow.
dead bird in a box, but then it's like somebody hears those wings fluttering, like somebody looks out onto the
Wow.
valley of the dry bones and like says, like, I think I see something growing in there. And I
Wow.
think the theme of that dream and also like of the looking out in the dry bones is like fear. Like it's so scary to look out on that. It's so
Hmm.
scary to think about the bird in the box and you're like, wow. Um, yeah, I don't know. This feels like a good place to end.
Wow, that dream. I mean, that gives goosebumps. I mean, there's just so much
Mm.
power in that, just that image of like, will we go over to listen and cup our ear
Yeah.
to the box? And I just think about the landscape of the world right now and how people are, I mean, we have all had moments of just despairing,
Yeah.
wondering,
Hmm.
what is going to happen to
Hmm.
our world, and to so just to remember that. I love that. I like that image of wings fluttering and bones rattling. I guess
Yes.
there's
I say
there's
we
hope ahead.
I say we end our conversation with that with a caveat. Um, I would love to send people to a few places and we'll have the links. I was like my kids sometimes when they're pretending to be YouTube people, they're like, check the links down below. But like it's true. We will put the links down below for everybody's being able to like find all of your stuff. But I wanted to
Oh.
specifically call out your art and the art that you have that's wearable. So for people
Oh.
that are not aware, Arianne's sweatshirt was made by her own art. So can you tell us a little bit
Mm.
about that and like how people can find it and the whole thing?
Thank you. Yes. Well, it's been a fun and joyful experiment. But I started scanning my watercolor art that I do, and printing it on clothes, and learned about that from another watercolor artist who's done the same thing. And it's been so much fun. So this sweatshirt is one piece of it, but also I have my middle son loves art and loves creative expression, and so he's been a little buddy for me too. And helping me design some things and including some clothes for kids, which has been fun. So it's now been about a year ago. I started an Etsy shop. It's Arianne B. Lane Art Etsy. So that'll be one link that we provide for you, and that has links to the clothes, and there's some pillows and a cozy blanket, and along with art prints and original watercolors are on there as well. And then the other best places to connect with me would be either my website, ariannebraithwaitelehn.com, or through my Substack that I send out Monday Manna. It's called. So I send that out on Monday morning. It's meant to be some nourishment, like a devotional for you and starting out your week. And I have both my writing in there, normally a prayer from my book, Ash and Starlight, and then some of my watercolor painting in that as well.
Yes. It's one of my
Aw.
favorite emails on Monday, and it always is there waiting for me to start the week. So thank you for
As is
that.
your Treasure Box Tuesday. I love that we're Monday, Tuesday.
Yes, we gotta like line them up all days of the week. Ariane, thank you
Uh,
so much for being in
oh,
conversation with
thank you.
Family
I'd
Faith
love to
every
connect with
day.
any of you watching. So thank you for your time and energy.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Tracy. You're
See
just
you
the
soon.
best.
Bye. Oh my goodness. So good to be with Ariane today. I hope that you all enjoyed the conversation. I was so blessed by it. I think one of the things that's so good about doing recordings like this with people that you know well is that you can trust when the conversation goes a little bit off script. And there are a number of things that were not on my kind of planned to talk about list with Ariane. And I loved that we were able to head there. So thank you, Ariane, so much for sharing your time and your gifts with us. And friends, we're going to drop all of the links to where you can find Ariane out in the world. And if you want to wrap up your children in flowers and flowered blankets or read blessings over them. We will show you how to do that. And I wish for you all many, many, many good things and blessings. I would hold up my candle. I always have a candle going, but you might have seen at the beginning of the conversation. If not, you can rewind to see it. There was like smoke going around, and it's because my candle had burned all the way down to the bottom. And when I saw that, I sort of thought, oh, that's the Holy Spirit saying hello. So, friends, peace to you and blessing. And thank you so much for joining Family Faith every day in conversation. Be well.